as a pro-choice individual, some of your fans won't like this when I say this. I know more than half of my fans probably don't like it. I'm pro-choice. As far as federal funding, though, it's okay if that gets rescinded. The states and private groups will step in. I don't want people who are hyper-religious to have to pay for abortion because they think that it's wrong. Mm-hmm. They have an honest, deep-seated belief that it's morally wrong. I wouldn't make them pay for it. I would rather pay on their behalf. Go ahead and charge me an extra $10 at the end of the year or whatever for however many religious people don't want to pay. I don't have a problem with that.
And Jay, you being pro-life, right? What's your opinion on his opinion? I actually agree with that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that he would see the logic of at least there not being federal funding. I think that, you know, ultimately this does come down to questions of morals and paradigms. So I would disagree with the states funding it as well. I mean, this is kind of the libertarian way to get around this, is make it a states issue. You know, Ron Paul has this kind of position. So I understand the logic of it, but ultimately I think it comes down to a question of whether it's right or wrong and not just a question of funding. And for me, even aside from like theological or religious moral issues, is the issue of the origins of the Planned Parenthood type movement in the US and where it comes from and why it's actually funded. And if you look into that, I think there's also a case to be made against it.
I think you'd find that a great proportion of my fans, your fans, and everyone watching here would actually support them more if they knew where Planned Parenthood came from. Just gonna put that out there. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about like basic eugenics,
eugenics, exactly.
Right. But the problem is that kind of stuff doesn't stop with one people group. It actually ends up being turned on the other group. And I think so. That's the problem where we are now, is that the same tactics that were used on different communities have actually turned against whites now, and whites are suffering. You know,
the only thing that I would say is fundamentally this. Whether you believe that abortion is right or wrong, government is always wrong and should not be playing a role in medical decisions. And according to my opinion, government shouldn't. If a community wants to say, we don't like abortion, we're going to discourage it, we're going to tell this woman, hey, please don't have an abortion, that's fine. Go ahead and do the moral neighborhood thing. But the government should not be making that decision. It opens up a can of worms where the government might tell you you can't have some other topical medical procedure because they find it morally wrong. I don't want that to happen. I don't trust government because I look at government and I see constantly it's making the wrong decisions. It's constantly doing the wrong thing. It's constantly killing people. I want them to have less guns and us to have more at this point. I want them to have less leeway, less money, and everyone else to have more, because I think that a private citizen, some random gang member could probably govern their money better than the government could. You give $100 to a gangbanger, they'll probably be better off with it than the government would be. That's the problem.
One thing I would say, though, is that I don't think that abortion, for example, exists in a vacuum. In other words, it's connected to a whole lot of other social engineering programs that you can actually verify. For example, there's the 1969 Jaffe Berelson memo. If you look up the Bernard Berelson memo, you'll see this list of things where the state, at the behest of the Rockefeller Foundation, actually talked about large-scale social engineering, not just abortion, but also statism through like limiting families, statism in terms of increased taxing, all there as part of the LGBTQ trans agenda in the 60s in this Planned Parenthood Rockefeller memo spelled out for our era.
You mean LGBTQAST and 10 or 20 more letters thereafter?
Make up new characters based on...
It has gone a little bit beyond. But I'll say this, they can try to socially engineer, but there will always be benevolent individuals who can stop them. So I'm not particularly worried, because counter-propaganda is way more powerful. Memetics is way more powerful than Margaret Sanger and all these people ever could possibly have dreamed of.
AJ, like, you're pro-life. How about if the woman is raped and then she's like pregnant?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are situations where if it becomes, I mean, I don't think that our position has to be completely against reason. I think that we can utilize reason in concord with, you know, even my religious beliefs or other people's religious beliefs. So if it's a situation where obviously the child's not going to survive, yeah, I think that's a pretty normative standard. But you get more difficult cases where what exactly happened is in dispute, rape, this kind of stuff. I think the problem is that once you open the doorway, it does become a Pandora's box. Styx makes the same kind of argument about the state, and why the state is, say, against Richard Spencer or someone like this, that we have to beware of the Pandora's box. I think that's a valid argument for things like euthanasia, the state controlling who lives and dies. I don't think the state has that should have that power.
That's actually interesting, because I pointed out on the last video about it, a lot of people who are pro-life, they'll say, oh, except but for rape, incest, the mother's life is in danger maybe or something. I think you're being more honest, if I take it correctly, that you wouldn't support it in those cases either. At least that's consistency, because they'll say, oh, it's okay for mafiols or something. And it's like, well, you're saying abortion is murder, so why would it be okay just because it's an incest rape maybe or something like that? Yeah. I'm sitting here, I just say that the government should not be making that decision. I would leave it up to private citizens, because I'm going to trust them more. I honestly, I can't trust government with that kind of power. I just can't do it. It's not in my nature.
Have you heard of what's happening in Ireland right now? They're having the vote to abortion is illegal in Ireland right now, right? And they're having the vote to either make it illegal or legal, right? And women from there, when they want an abortion, they fly over to the UK or take a boat there and have an abortion over there. And
that's what they did here with Canada and Mexico. Exactly, when it was illegal here.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're all aware of like demographic replacement, and that the numbers are not enough for there to be replacement. And I don't think we can look past the fact that part of the reason for this is that promotion of the culture of sterilization, sterility, abortion, which has happened in the West by design.
You realize that most abortions take place in black females, right?
Right. Yeah. But that's spreading now beyond black neighborhoods. Yeah.
Well, I really don't care who gets an abortion. They're gonna get them anyway. Look, back 50, 60 years ago, before Roe v. Wade, people would just puncture their cervix with a coat hanger in the most literal sense. Now, some people think it's a coat hanger abortion. That's a lie. They would puncture their cervix to get it to bleed, and then they would go and say, hey, I'm miscarrying. And then they would have the abortion at the doctor. In the case of emergency, it was still allowed. And a lot of people ended up sterile, and a lot of people died as the result of it. I'd rather have that procedure in a medical setting than them going into an alley with a half bottle of whiskey and a rusty coat hanger. I have to say, look, if I had a daughter, I wouldn't want her to live in a country that would tell her, hey, the government's going to make this fucking decision for you. I wouldn't be comfortable with that. It should be her decision to make. I fully believe that.
Right, but I'm just making the point. I think that there's such a thing as toxic culture, that powerful groups can engineer large-scale ideologies to alter and change a culture. Like, for example, I just did a lecture on one of the top globalists of France. He's sort of the Kissinger of France, Jacques Attali, and he's such a big fan of Marxism as a capitalist, supposedly, that he can't wait for the AI to determine who lives and dies based on, these sort of private-run medical AI smart cities, right? And he says it's going to be the smart city running the tied into the medical, the big pharma, big medical corporations deciding who lives and dies. And so that's actually part of the same agenda. You have to inculcate this culture of death for many, many decades before you can get to that Jacques Attali, H.G. Wells dystopian phase.
I highly doubt that it'll be implemented, because people will fight back. But that's a medical decision. That dates back decades and decades. That has nothing to do with postmodernism in the social justice warrior sense we generally understand it. We can fight back against that while still admitting the state itself should not be the one arbitrating that decision. Well, but I mean, in my opinion.
Right. I mean, the Fortune 100, who are not the state, but actually own many states. I mean, they promote these things globally. I mean, that's why the trans agenda is global, is because the Fortune 100 are behind it.
Well, the trans agenda can't even get past the feminists. They're constantly attacking one another. You look at a Shoe on Head and her drama there, getting beaten up over that too. This is even touching the so-called liberalists sort of crowd. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, but Jay, do you think that abortion should be illegal here in the West?
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be the first step towards rising birth rates again. And
that would be like outlawing drugs. It won't work.
Well, actually, it has worked. I mean, there's a difference. I would say there's a difference between drugs, and I'm familiar with the complexities of like the drug war and all that. And I know the CIA runs the drugs, but I'm just saying there's a difference between that, because it's a question of morality. There's also a pragmatic aspect to the drug question. So two different issues. I wouldn't equate whether or not humans have a right to life from the womb with just the license to take drugs. Because, for example, I would say we were qualitatively a much more moral society at a time when you could go to a drugstore and buy cocaine 100 years ago. Apothecaries had cocaine.
You could also buy pennyroyal and cohosh and get a chemical abortion back then. That's the point.
Yeah, but just because people will do something in an unhealthy fashion doesn't mean that it's not still something that should be morally outlawed. I mean, this comes back to the question of the role of the state, which, you know, I'm not libertarian, so you and I would disagree there. But you know, I think the state does have a role in things like, for example, I'm pro death penalty. So there's a difference between life and death, and not all killing is murder.
I find it very funny that you'd be pro death penalty while at the same time being in against abortion.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I see no contradiction at all.
I'm exactly the obverse on that, and I admit the contradiction. It is very funny of me to have those views, but I will say this: the state shouldn't decide. The fundamental central principle is I don't trust the state to make that kind of decision. I don't trust it to execute someone. I don't trust it to tell people what medical procedures to get. I don't trust it to tell people what to do with their money, what to do with their land. I don't trust it to tell people what firearms they can own. I don't think that it has the constitutional right. According to my understanding of the Constitution, it shouldn't be involved in any of these things. That sort of moralism is prefaced on the temperance era. That was an afterthought. It was never really dreamed of until two things happened. 1870s, you get the Cruikshank decision, and the Southern Democrats, the Ku Klux Klan sort of Democrats, attempt gun control. Further beyond that, in the Gilded Age, you get all of a sudden the government attempting to crack down on monopolies and trusts. And this is what breeds the concept of centrality within the Americas. It was never really present. The problem is, of course, this actually didn't help, because you were also in the carpetbag era, which meant that they always could take bribes, and they would not apply those laws to the actual evildoers. They would apply it to their competitors. That's where you get corporatism. That's the government that we deal with. Why would I want to give it more power?
Well, in Ireland, there was someone who the doctor said, if she has this baby, she will die. And she had to have the baby. And she died. This is like last month, basically.
Yeah, what a wonderful moral government, isn't it?
And no one told her, because she had no idea that if she took a boat over to the UK, that she was able to have it there. So she ended up passing away. So, Jay, isn't there like a slippery slope where if you make it illegal, they'll take it to the level where if in that situation, they won't let you have an abortion, even though it's medically needed for the person to survive?
Well, okay, yeah. I mean, these kinds of cases actually are very rare, and oftentimes they're kind of rolled out as sort of like as if they happen all the time, and that's why we have to really focus on these kinds of. But they don't happen a lot. These kinds of situations. Now, I'm not saying that they don't matter, but again, there's always been, you know, the doctor has a level of making a judgment call, and that's going to be true for any kind of medical situation that's somewhat of an emergency. So I'm not being irrational in saying that there can never be situations where it's deemed advantageous to save the mother's life, certainly. But that really is a different question from whether there's such a thing as right to life from the womb or not. Two different questions. So in other words, because there are consequentialist ethic type dilemmas at times, it doesn't lead us to the conclusion that there aren't moral absolutes. And of course, I am somebody who supports the idea of moral absolutes.
But you say that they're rare and this is meaningful. It's also rare that people get an abortion after 5 or 6 months in the third trimester, and yet it's constantly trotted out by the pro-life crowd. Oh, look at this almost formed baby. Oh, you think that infants should be killed at 8 months, 3 weeks, and 6 days, or some crazy shit like that. That gets trotted out constantly.
No, I would totally agree with you that the majority of the pro-life crowd and their argumentation is very weak. In fact, it's almost like a humanistic type thing, and precisely because it's not grounded in any philosophy that's beyond just bare humanism, which they haven't actually justified. They actually undermine a lot of their case much of the time.
Yeah. I would also point out, you can go ahead and make it illegal here, and would just end up going back to what we were before Roe v. Wade. People would go to Canada or Mexico. The upper class would go to Canada, where it's, first world medicine. They can get an abortion the same as they do now. People who are a little bit less well off, or they're close to the southern border, they'll go down to Mexico. And people who are very poor, which are the most at risk anyway, will literally use, hey, I'm going to guzzle alcohol. I'm going to punch myself in the stomach. I'm going to puncture my cervix, and the doctor will think I'm miscarrying. I don't think that you want that sort of society. If you believe in the, are you a Christian? Let me ask you that.
Yeah, I'm Orthodox.
Okay, as a Christian, you can't possibly believe that that's a moral society. I'm going to hazard a guess that you can't possibly fathom a society in which a state has made that kind of decision. That sounds a lot like me. To me, like the sort of stuff that you would expect from maybe a communist authoritarian state.
Well, I mean, the history of Western civilization, especially after the rise of Christianity, put away the idea that the Romans had, that the father could actually decide whether or not the children lived or died. Or, they would oftentimes, he had the right to kill daughters. Christianity influenced that in a big way to change things. So the history of the West, through the 7 ecumenical councils that we as Orthodox hold authoritative, the Byzantine Empire. I mean, the norm, and even in the West, the norm is that abortion and infanticide were considered illegal and were illegal. In fact, in Scripture, that it carries the death penalty, or a similar type of penalty, to if a woman has a child and you hurt the woman and it endangers the child or kills the child, you're still liable for that kind of a death type penalty. So in our theology,
propertarian sense, yeah.
In our theology, it's consistent. It's worked out. That's why we believe in just war, for example. But that doesn't mean that war is necessarily a good thing. A lot of times, life requires difficult decisions. And for example, Byzantium had to stand against Islam, and unfortunately, it fell. So that's just the realities of this world. But I don't think that my position is irrational or necessarily brings about a situation that is dystopian. In fact, it is the culture of death in all the globalists who write about this that will, in their mind, lead to this complete dystopia that they have planned.
I wouldn't say that it's an issue of globalism, because one can be more nationalistic like myself and still understand the concept that the state shouldn't have that power. I take up, though, a pragmatic line. It's not even really a libertarian line. What I'm saying is, if you were to ban, let's say you ban abortion, except in these few cases, or in all cases, people will simply skirt that law and go elsewhere. In fact, so long as there is a nationalistic world in which there are multiple states, they can always travel to another state to obtain an abortion. Somebody will be willing, because people are inherently capitalistic, to supply that good or service. Yeah, you've just created a black market within your country that's going to be exploited by people that you don't want to make money. You want to throw them in jail ultimately. And people outside of the country who are more opportunistic, they'll advertise their services. Like if abortion were made illegal in the United States, yeah, I'd probably grow more cohosh and pennyroyal. Absolutely. And, yeah, I wouldn't think that was morally wrong.
Yeah, I understand. I don't see that as a consistent line of reasoning as to why we would make something legal. For example, there's all kinds of things that people are going to do outside the law. That in itself isn't really a justification for
if it's generally unenforceable. If it is generally unenforceable to the point where people will bypass that law, I would say don't bother. This is an argument for weed legalization. It's simply unenforceable at this point. Even the states are rebelling on it. There's no way that the federal government can possibly crack down the can of worms is open. They're not going to be able to keep up the propaganda that if you smoke weed, you're going to smoke crack. It doesn't work anymore. I carry this forward and I say it's not just weed, it's psychedelics too. That's a minority opinion now. 20, 30 years from now, we'll see if it still is. As far as abortion goes, though, this was a 70s era debate. And they had the debate because it was unenforceable. No, but it wasn't brought up because everyone agreed, hey, you know, this is a horrible thing. We don't need abortion. Just have the child. A lot of people ended up sterilized, or they ended up dead, or they ended up going to other countries to get abortions. Millions of people. That's why they had the national debate. That's why it went before the court, because people cared.
No.
If they hadn't cared, it wouldn't have gone before the Supreme Court. There never would have been a Roe v. Wade.
I have to disagree with you there, because the reason that it became a national debate and it was passed is because of principally the Rockefeller family and their support and promotion of this, because they've had such an influence through entities like the Council on Foreign Relations, the CFR, which are entities that are able to, on a large scale, socially engineer. You can read about this in David Rockefeller's memoirs. He brags about it. You can read about it in Horowitz and Collier's authorized biography of the Rockefellers. They talk about this very openly. The Barrelson Jaffe memo that.
But getting off the memo, yeah. Getting off the Rockefellers, though, abortion was already happening. I can read texts from 5 centuries before that prescribe abortifacients. They were already happening. It says that's the era in which it becomes popularized. Hey, you're capable of getting this if you need it. Before that, some 14-year-old raped by her own father, probably didn't know she could get an abortion and go on with her life and not feel ashamed every day. But in that era, it becomes popularized. Now, some people, yes, they try to use it as a form of birth control. That's very regrettable. Ultimately, I like to think, and I believe that the statistics bear me out on this, that's relatively uncommon. Most people abort in the first trimester, maybe the second. They don't wait until the baby is formed. And also the Bible itself, you're Orthodox, the Bible itself speaks of the quickening. That's at roughly 5 months. When the baby starts kicking and doing things. That's when the breath of life enters the infant, according to the Bible, at least the King James Version.
No, again, in our view, the argument is made from Exodus chapters 19 to 22, where there's discussion.
That's the Old Testament. I believe I'm speaking of the New Testament. Let me look it up. I'll find the verse if I can.
Well, yeah, but I mean, in Orthodox theology, our theology is not just based on the New Testament. We view the whole totality of the Scripture as revelatory. But again, you're basically making a consequentialist argument for why something should be legalized, and the problem with that is that the fact that people get around things doesn't really have anything to do with whether it's right or wrong. And we're talking about issues of right and wrong, I would say, unless you just want to make a pragmatic argument, which maybe that's what you're doing.
Yeah. He keeps bringing up 1 Corinthians. That's the one about Adam, but it's similar. No, I can't remember the exact verse, but it essentially states that life begins at the quickening.
There's a Talmudic argument that life begins several months in, but for most Orthodox Christianity and the history of Christianity and the Church Fathers, that's not true. We believe the second.
But for the United States, the Orthodox Christian path is a small minority. You do acknowledge that.
Absolutely.
Here it's mainly Protestants and then Catholics,
right,
and then non-believers.
Hey, I'm pro-choice as well. However, I do say to people who go, well, it's not a real baby yet. It's not like a real human. Like the fact that it will be a baby, that's still stopping life. Maybe not killing life, but eventually stopping what will be
from
life.
Forming.
Yeah. So like for me, I sort of like, and I'm still pro choice, right? So that's sort of how I see it. I always think when someone's like, well, it's not technically a baby yet. I'm like, well, it will be a baby. So it feels like a cop out, almost like an excuse. Like I think just call a spade, that's my opinion on that.
And it's not something that needs to be encouraged. That's the thing. You're interjecting. Globalists would come and encourage the concept of having abortions for some wanton reason. if you want to say that that's not a good idea, that's fine. I am simply saying that something that has been done for centuries and will be done regardless of the law, it is unenforceable, and I don't trust the government to make that decision. Because literally, you can have a tea of pennyroyal and blue cohosh, and it will induce an abortion. You can use a parsley pessary for these things. If it's not made more simple in the surgical sense, then it will be done in the herbal sense. That's less safe. It will have a higher death toll. That's the unfortunate part of it. It can still be done, but it will kill more people. I really don't want to prescribe death to people. I don't think that that's appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, this sort of, again, consequentialist ends justify the means, pragmatic type argumentation is the same kind of argumentation that like Alfred Kinsey would use to justify his, molesting kids and his scientific experimentation. I mean, if the ends benefit humanity in the long run, if, people are, or we could say people are going to get around the laws against molesting children. So
how does this have anything to do with molesting children or with Kinsey?
Because the basis that you made for why it shouldn't be legal, or that it should be made illegal, is because it can't be enforced and people will get around it.
It's not just the fact that it's unenforceable. It's the fact that people have been doing this for so long.
People have been molesting kids for a long time.
No, that has nothing to do with it. It's an apple and oranges comparison.
But the
violating the NAP of another sovereign individual is a little bit different from a debate over whether a lump of cells at 2 weeks in is sentient.
Well,
that's a little bit different.
They have a heartbeat. So
no, at that point it does not have a heartbeat.
Absolutely, yes, it does.
It's
arbitrary. It's arbitrary to say
at 2 weeks it has a heartbeat. You're saying.
It's arbitrary to say
on that one. You need to. I have to respectfully disagree and tell you to consult some biological textbooks on that one.
Well, I mean, there's quite a few
child molestation and medical procedures are not the same thing.
No, I'm not talking about. I didn't say the same thing.
The state does not have the right to tell a woman that she cannot choose an abortion, at least within a reasonable period of time. At the same time, if the state were to come out and say, hey, 10-year-olds need to go prostitute themselves, that wouldn't be appropriate either. It would violate the NAP. It's violating the NAP of a woman if it's telling her what they can or cannot do. These two things have nothing to do with one another.
This is arbitrary. There's no reason that I should follow the NAP. It's just an arbitrary thing.
Then if you don't want to follow the NAP, the government can tell you abortion's legal, deal with it, and pay it for it with your taxes, can't it?
Yeah, the government
pay for it, shit lord, essentially is what they'd say.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, I'm telling you, I wouldn't make you pay a penny. I'm willing to pay your share because I don't believe that you should be put upon any more than I should be.
Yeah. But see, it doesn't really matter whether it's the government, the state, or the corporate power, because you always talk about the state. The state is not even really a thing that has that much power in our day because it's run by corporations. The corporations, the banks own the states. So that's actually the end result of individual atomistic capitalism is the rise of the monopoly capitalists.
No, that's not capitalism. That's corporatism. That's the abandonment of capitalism in favor of centrality. Yeah, that sort of centrality is not capitalism.
It leads to that logically. Absolutely, it does, and you can trace
not in its proper form. You're thinking of carpetbagging. The corporatist model that we run today is much closer.
On what basis should anybody follow the proper form of capitalism? I mean, Ayn Rand's position, for example. I know you're not Ayn Randian, but I'm just saying,
no.
If I were to adopt Randianism, there's no reason why I should respect other people's liberties or the non-aggression principle. It's just arbitrary.
No, you shouldn't, and other people shouldn't too. That's why you need to create counterbalances of power. That's the basic form of the country relies upon the concept of the separation of powers and the fact that they balance one another.
You're assuming that separation of powers is a good, and so you have a higher metaphysical principle of the good to which you're saying that we should all strive. Maybe that's not the good. Maybe the good is just my company, my corporation smashing everybody else and taking us into the future.
That's what you should attempt to do. Absolutely.
I'm the God Emperor of Dune. I'm the God Emperor of Dune.
Yes, you should. And likewise, people should resist authoritarian government if the government's trying to tell them what medical procedures they can and cannot have.
I have someone who was in the chat, and I'm talking to him on DMs right now, who says he disagrees with both of you, which I was like, how's this? So I'm trying to figure out exactly his meaning. Would you dudes be down to speak to him?
Sure.
Okay, and here's what I will do. Just in case, I will have the camera only on me in case he screen shares and like here's a fucking dick just to ruin everything.
That would be very funny if he did.
Yeah, and that's why I will have. So I'll bring him in and
to this mystery person. You should moon the camera. It will be much more entertaining.
Yeah, so that's why I will have the camera only on me until I.
Sex ed class. He's going to show us how babies come to be.
So
no, he's going to say something like he's confused on abortion because he likes the idea of killing babies, but he doesn't want to watch a woman chew.
Well, he says that he's looking at this from an anarchist perspective. So I'll bring him in, let's say about 5 minutes. Is that cool?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's up to you, like you dudes, but this is pretty intense right now.
I think it's fun. Me, yeah. It'd be fun.
Cool.
I was hoping that one dude that was talking about your crap today was going to come on.
Oh yeah,
Is it that guy?
No.
By the way, Andy, can I ask you one thing?
Sure, dude.
Have you ever tried randomly adding like thousands and thousands of people, like publicly tweeting out the Hangouts link and see what happens?
No, I haven't. No. I always just
you've got to do that sometime, dude.
Yeah, but I wouldn't put the camera on. Like I have done where I screen shared for a second, and then I showed the link, and then people just start jumping in, right? Which is very sketchy because if it's someone who hates me and wants to ruin the channel, they just put up a dick pic real quick. But yes. Oh wait. Oh, sorry. He's saying from an anarchist perspective, I would say government should have. Okay, yeah, sorry. I thought he was saying he wants to disagree politically. But yeah, I'll bring him in a second here. I know Jay just he'll be back in a sec here. I'll send you the link in a sec, bud. But
he had to go pee-pee.
Yeah, but I do find it interesting him and then I have to piss too because I have like you can't see here, but on the live show people can see. Let me see. I have a fucking jug of water because I was leaving on Friday to like just grab water constantly. But yeah, what was I gonna say? Yeah, it's interesting about how he's anti-abortion but pro-death penalty. That is very interesting because if we're looking at it in a morality perspective, wouldn't it be immoral to kill people? That's
Meanwhile, I'm the opposite. I'm like the state shouldn't kill people, and I don't care if women have abortions.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, it's just if there's women who want to have an abortion, there's probably a reason for that, and I can see the overpopulation of kids who are just traffic will be fucking more intense, you know. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
that's not
I don't want to deal with their stupid babies and stuff.
That's not my reason why. But yeah, I'll be back in just 1 second. Then I'll send the link out to Buddy over here. Sorry, just 1 sec. But Jay, you can speak.
Yeah, I mean, you know, not to beat this into the ground, but one of the things that I was interested in talking to you about was the conception of the state and the idea that like the state is somehow like uniquely the source of man's problems when, you know, it could easily be just as oligarchical in another system that maybe is true capitalism. I mean, do you see true capitalism as just solely the market operating, or do you see it like as a wider philosophy of just of like competing power structures?
True capitalism can be maintained only with competing power structures, in my opinion. That is like the very basis of capitalism is competition. It drives the prices down, it drives the wages up, it keeps everything moving smoothly. If something dies off, it gets replaced. Other people will replace it. It doesn't matter whether it's an individual or a group. The problem that I see is that governments end up innately, it seems, centralizing these businesses, forming corporations that are monopolistic, because these monopolies, when a business has a really good idea, makes a lot of money, they inevitably are going to, within a capitalistic system, and there's nothing wrong with it, seek to maintain that power. They will attempt to usurp any government that's associated with the system in which they exist. It's inevitable. That's not a problem so long as you have good trust busting and anti-monopoly laws and they're applied properly. The problem is that those rungs of government inevitably get stacked by those same wealthy individuals. I think one of the greatest sins of modern mankind within the United States is Citizens United. On this, I have to agree with literally the furthest left individuals in this country. It's one of the worst decisions we made. The formation of super PACs that are no longer beholden to any form of campaign laws other than they can't talk to a campaign is probably the worst thing that we've ever had as a country.
Well, okay, I don't have a problem with that in principle either, but I guess I'm asking it like maybe a more broad historical question. I mean, if you look at the rise of capitalism, right, out of the neo-feudal period into David Ricardo, Adam Smith, the early merchant class that wanted to rebel against the state, capitalism comes as a revolutionary force to try to get rid of throne and altar. So it's an inherently anti-monarchical, anti-state movement. But what it then does is it erects the usury power of banking to co-opt the state. And you can read Carol Quigley's Tragedy and Hope, the famous geopolitical tome I've done a bunch of lectures on. He talks about how at the time of the Enlightenment, the scientific revolution, it was these big banking houses that were actually using usury, using capital on an international scale to make these kinds of movements to control the state. And so that's why I see, actually, if you're nationalistic, you have to also not be completely capitalistic, because capitalistic is inherently anti-border. Marx himself was for open borders. Now, I know that you don't agree with that. I'm just saying that
Marx was an anti-capitalist. Yeah.
No, he wasn't.
Marx was a capitalist, you're saying?
No. I'm saying when I did undergrad and grad school, I studied under a guy from the Frankfurt School, so I have direct Marxist-Stalic succession from the Frankfurt School. I'm not a Marxist, but no, Marx thought that capitalism was just a necessary phase, and that ultimately, just like libertarianism, it would lead to the withering away of the state.
I think the withering away of a state is not necessary. You do need a state, but it has to counterbalance with private industry. Those private industries have to be made to counterbalance one another, and everything needs to be limited. The Constitution at its rudiment should have applied to private entities too. First and Fourth Amendment, we see with big tech right now. We're having that discussion. I want
to say I didn't fuck up the camera. I invited in Buddy here, so I'm gonna keep it on this camera just in case. What's up, Stoner Logic? How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Andy?
How you doing,
Good to
man?
talk to you.
Yeah, you as well, man. Thanks for being on.
Andy, Styx, huge fans of both you guys. Jay,
not so much a fan. That's all right.
I'm just not clued into you too much yet. But I did really like your conversation that you had with Syrian Girl the other day. That was awesome.
Yeah, man.
Thanks, man.
I hit her. Yeah, that was cool. Thanks.
So I think I missed a few minutes. Let's see. As far as abortion goes, I'm probably pretty close to where Styx is. I don't oppose it politically, but I don't agree with it personally.
And that's perfectly sensible.
Okay, and just something you said just a minute ago, it sounded like you were saying that you think that we need a state, Styx?
I'm not an ANCAP, I'm an anarchist. I believe that a state is necessary as an organizational central principle, but it has to be far more constrained. The state that we formed as the U.S. could have been perfect, but the Constitution should have been 5 or 6 amendments longer. And it should have been much, much more easy to interpret by people who have too much time on their hands, aka the Supreme Court.
Okay, well, I disagree. I don't think that we need governments at all. So you specifically, you're saying that you think that we need governments to organize people then?
I think that some form of organization is necessary, but the thing is, with the principle of counterbalancing powers against one another to prevent them from becoming tyrannical, you can't just have private entities. You also have to have a public entity, a government. Agreed. That government needs to be very, very limited, though. Like the Second Amendment shouldn't be so ambiguous. Now, you and I probably agree that it protects all firearms in the hands of private citizens. The militia is the citizens. But we've been having a debate for a century and a fucking half over this concept because people are dumb. The problem is that there are too many dumb people in society, and so there have to be counterbalancing poles of power to make sure that they don't get abused by one power or another. That's basically what I'm saying.
Okay, well, I pretty much look at it like anything that somebody thinks that is needed to be provided by the government is something that can be provided by people. And I tend to say to people that anything that the government does, people can do, because the government is just people.
Yeah, it is. It's just that you've got a little bit of taxpayer funding for a central organization that hopefully is very, very small. But the thing is, you can constrain it in a constitutional sense. If you've got a constitutional republic, you're capable of making that government much, much smaller than ours. We've got the biggest government budget in the world. Well, that shouldn't be. We're also the only true constitutional republic at this point. We shouldn't be operating this way. Unfortunately, in the wake of the Second World War with mutually assured destruction, our government went haywire with paranoia and propaganda, and we essentially became the USSR. That's what I see as the problem. We'll see if we can put the genie back in the bottle, I guess.
Okay, well, I do like the idea of making government smaller. I would rather that it didn't exist at all. I mean, in
a perfect world, yeah.
But since other countries do have governments, I see that it would be kind of a bad idea for us to remove ours while other countries have theirs in place. But I would rather have global anarchism.
If it could be instituted worldwide, that there would be no states at all, no power structures at all, and people could agree 100% on that, it would be the best of all worlds. But that's utopianism. Mm-hmm. It will never actually happen. It's the same problem communism runs into. Communism sounds great until you actually try to implement it. Then it stops working. The same is true of the ANCAP ideology. I've sparred with Mall News people before on this. He believes in a stateless society. I don't think that it can work. I believe in monarchism. I simply want to limit government a lot more than it is currently and shrink it to maybe 1/10 its current size. I think that's acceptable. Yes, it technically violates the NAP. Is it preferable to what we have now worldwide? Absolutely.
I believe in monarchism, not minarchism.
Yeah, I think that's a terrible idea.
I actually think that anarchism is something that'll be an inevitability, that eventually people will just say, this is stupid. I don't need somebody to tell me what to do and take my money.
No, they won't.
They will, but the problem is that a lot of people, they do need some sort of order. I hate to say it, but if someone is intelligent, if someone is intelligent and not self-destructive, they don't need government to tell them what to do. They could skirt all laws because they're never going to break any laws that are going to lead to them being harmed. They're not going to drive drunk because they know it's a bad idea. I might hit a tree. But someone who's a moron probably will. Even in a legal system that already bans it, they do these things. All of those vices would just be multiplied if you had an ANCAP society. I believe that. Well, what private corporation is going to police it? Well, there's going to be a private corporation to police the roads, then what's the difference? They can just abuse you more. They're not even constrained by a constitution. That's why I'm not an ANCAP.
Well, I wouldn't say that a private corporation would need to police people's behavior. I'd say that individuals could do that.
That's vigilantism. And so you've got mob rule. That turns into the most hardcore form of authoritarianism. That's where monarchism comes from. That's where the most severe tyrannies, originally mankind early on, thousands of years ago, didn't have government. They got together loosely in tribes, but they were completely authoritarian. The dude with the biggest club and the biggest muscles ran the fucking tribe. Nobody else is going to tell him what to do. He's totally unconstrained. There's no competing power structure until they go to war, and then maybe he gets killed. But then he just gets replaced by some other berserker.
Well, no one person is going to be able to stand up to the biggest and strongest. But, if like there's a couple of people and they say, hey, we don't like how this guy is ruling. We'd rather not be ruled. Why don't the two of us get together and kill this guy?
You just invented direct democracy, aka mob rule. That's the problem. That's exactly what Plato talked about. The strongman mentality devolves. You have the democracy. You have the dude. He's the strongest. He's good at what he does. He's really, really good at beating that mammoth over the head. He rules the roost. A bunch of people get together and say, we're tired of him taking extra food. Why do we care? They kill him off. They probably eat him in the process. Now you've got a democracy. And then it devolves into an oligarchy because 51% of those people get together and then they form the council and they say, well, we're just going to vote to take away everything from everyone else. And at the end, you get a tyranny, because then that devolves even further and someone takes control and they start promising to that 49%, hey, I can alleviate all your problems. Just give me more power. And meanwhile, they're going behind the backs of the little people and talking to a few people on that council too. And they're saying, hey, don't worry about it too much. I'll spare you. We're just going to kill these other dudes off. You can have, part of their estates, and I'll give some crumbs to the little people. And you've got a tyranny. And then eventually another democracy arises. Someone comes along and beans them all in the head, and the whole thing starts over again. The republic is meant to defeat this process. It has to have capitalism. It needs to have capitalism.
Yeah, the republic is also the model for all Soviet systems. The United Soviet Socialist Republic is one of the many attempts to model a completely rational, idealistic society to bring it into existence. America was one of those experiments as well. So all of these Enlightenment rationalist republic experiments have been tried, and they all fail really quickly. They fall right into total despotism. And ironically, did you know that as Hans Hermann Hoppe has shown, you actually had less taxation under monarchs than you have under democratic republics, because democratic republics are inherently tyrannical. That's what even Plato talked about, democratic republics being inherently tyrannical, because they're controlled by the oligarchical money power. So the response of anarchism is merely one dialectical phony position that's set against something like collectivism. And both of those positions are wrong, because man is always going to need some collective aspect and some individualistic aspect. So until you have a balance between the one and the many, you're just going to fall into, in my view, dialectical tensions, which are manipulated. Hegel wrote about this. So you're not going to get anarchism, because most people are never going to be self-governing. You're always going to have a large portion of the population that cannot self-govern. And to think that that's going to happen globally is just a pure idealism.
Yeah, unfortunately, 9 out of 10 people need some form of governance. For the rest of the people, yeah, they're going to have to sacrifice in order to live in a society where 9/10 of their neighbors aren't starving or trying to kill them. That's again minarchism. Where I differ from Jay, I think. I simply think that we could have an eternal republic, a constitutional republic like we have now, if we simply constrained it far more. All we have to do is constrain government more and constrain certain private endeavors, corporations, from abusing people due to the nature of modern human communications. If we can achieve that, I think we could have 1,000 years of peace and prosperity very, very easily, minus maybe a demographic crisis here and there.
Well, in regards to what you said earlier, I think that you were jumping to some conclusions about how you think that things would play out. Not that I think that it was unjustified. I'm sure that historically it's how it's happened before. But if the guy with the biggest club or whatever, if a couple of guys got together and said, we don't want to be ruled over, we're killing him, I don't see why that would have to turn into a democracy after that. Why we can't just take out the ruler and be like, good, the ruler's gone, now we can rule ourselves.
Because why was there a ruler in the first place? It's because it's inevitable. There's going to be a power structure in place. You just have to determine what form it is. If you've got anarchism, what you've really got is mob rule. You've just literally described the answer to your own dilemma, which is that several other people got together and killed the dude with the big club. The dude with the big club didn't need to be elected. He simply was the strongest. He didn't even necessarily appoint himself the leader of anything. He simply innately leads because he is the strongest. He's the best at killing. He's the best at fighting. It took 2 or 3 people to take him down. Those people now have made that decision. They have formed a government by doing so. They have made themselves arbiter over life and death for this other individual because they get tired of him. then you no longer have our anarchy at all.
All right. Well, we'll move on from this, but thanks for hopping on, dude.
Okay, and hey, I just wanted to say,
words?
Yeah, my YouTube channel is called Radio Freedom, and also I got on by offering to suck Andy's dick. So if anybody else wants to get on, just offer him a blowjob and he'll put you right on the show.
I have a better form of government.
You're supposed to offer to spoon him.
Oh yeah, I'll spoon clank you all night long, Andy.
Oh, sounds good, man. I appreciate it.
I want to set up a cockocracy, and I'll be the ruler of it.
All right, Stoner Logic. Thanks for hopping on, dude.
All right, thanks.
Have a good night, man.
All right, peace,
Thanks.
dude.
You'll have 10 in the cockocracy. You'll have 10.2 people on your council. One of them is a paraplegic midget with no legs.
I was afraid for 1 second. He was like, one more thing, and I switched the camera right to me. I'm like, no, hang on.
Yeah.
Like, one more thing, here's my dick.
Yep.
He did talk about dicks for a second, so yeah. And hang on, there was one
limited state for you, Andy.
Yeah. There's one question here. Tactical boomerism for 15. Thanks so much, man. I'd love to hear Jay and Styx take on symbology of the Vatican Audience Hall and resurrection sculpture. What is the significance of the serpent here? Is this really a nuclear blast? Also, why?
Wait, do you mean that giant statue that Pope occasionally sits in front of that has all the deformed angels and stuff?
Yeah.
I would say that that's evidence that the Vatican has more money than sense. They're into some weird postmodern art bullshit.
Yeah, I don't think it's a nuke blast. I think it does signify the Vatican's, especially since Vatican II, their acceptance of pretty rabid liberalism and postmodernism. So it's reflected in the architecture and the art all the time.
No, literally, their acceptance of sin according to their own prior views.
Yeah, absolutely.
A nationalist for £5. I'm genuinely curious. Why don't you wear a shirt, Styx? Also, if you do decide to wear a shirt, make it a nice one, not a gay one like Jay's.
I actually want like a Hawaii. Your shirt, Jay, is kind of like Hawaiian print, isn't it?
Yeah, it's boomer tactical boomerism is what I'm doing here.
Yeah. If it were a lighter shade of blue, it would look a lot like Tommy Vercetti mode.
Exactly.
Time for some Vice City. That I would wear. I would wear like a white 80s vintage leisure suit or something like that, and I'll probably do that at some point just to show that I can wear a shirt. But no time soon.
Kevin, sorry, go ahead.
Is it okay if I do this? Or?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Andy's gotta do that too, and I'll be shirtless.
It's gonna be the cockocracy for real.
Exactly.
Actually, I did that on Kumite on Friday. I don't know if you saw that, Styx, where I went shirtless and put mayo all over my body, because we had someone on called the Mayo King who does that. Like, that's what he eats, 1 gallon of mayo a day by scooping it out, and he just
can't be sick. He couldn't survive.
He's diabetic as well.
Oh.
He says that his doctor handed him some pills that prevent him from dying, so he's allowed to do it. And I warned him. I warned him. Yeah. Dude, it's absolutely insane. Kevin Laird for 5. If women are allowed to jettison responsibility for taking care of a child after pregnancy, should men be allowed to as well? It's only fair, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If a male doesn't want to be involved with that and the female wants to have the child, he should be able to forfeit that. Forfeit involvement, and in the process, he shouldn't have to pay any sort of money for it. It's her responsibility. She's the one that chose to have it.
Deplorabology for 2. Abortion is how I prepare a dinner. Wow, I fucked up that punchline. I'm sorry, dude. I said my dinner. A Morty key for 200 knock. Don't trust anyone. And deplorable.
Wait, 200 knock?
Yeah, I think that's $24.
Oh,
around there. A deplorabology. For 5, what is the best argument for cannibalism?
Waste not, want not.
Styx's beautiful flesh.
And Zero the Hero says 99% of abortions are not medical emergencies or rape, which I'd say so, right?
Yeah.
It might not be 99%, but yeah, it's most of them.
I know a chick, and this is like for real, who's had 7 abortions.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I know several women that have had abortions, and you know, it's not a big thing. I don't think about it much.
But 7,
I just don't give a shit.
But 7, like that's after let's say 3, it's like, all right, let's figure this out, you know?
At that point, it is a little weird.
Yeah.
That's using it as a form of birth control, which you're not supposed to do. You end up sterile eventually. You won't have to have any more abortions because you won't be able to have a child.
I was always saying, like, I made a joke to her saying she has one of those like Subway cards after like the 7th abortion, like after stamping, like the 8th one's for free. She didn't find that funny, by the way. I'm just seeing if we have any other questions for you, Styx, here. I'll keep looking right here. Okay, here's one. Spooky Weep Trash for 10. I'm pro-choice, but I wouldn't recommend for the majority of the time. But wouldn't recommend for the majority of the time. If a woman has an abortion, she's most likely to kill herself, and she'll never get over it. Abortion is mostly a black issue too. That's all about the.
I don't know that it causes everyone to be cut up. Definitely, sometimes it can, but a person's got to be able to make their own decisions, and that's a mistake or a good thing depending on the person. But they've got to be able to make that. They can be informed. You can educate them. You can tell them you do or do not support their decision, but it's not your right to force them into that position. And using paying government to put someone in jail for making a decision is, I argue, worse morally.
Someone in the chat said, "I'm a failed abortion." That's not nice.
Maybe they mean that literally.
Yeah. Yeah, but that dude, the ANCAP, like not having anyone run anything. That's like what? No police as well. Is that what it means as well? Like,
I guess the left wing will support that.
That is dumb. That's absolutely, like, you guys were very polite for what that was, because I don't know. I don't see the logic in that at all.
I think the idea generally is to privatize a lot of those services. Like instead of having a government administer them, you'd have a business, or instead of police, you'd have people policing their own communities. The problem that you run into, of course, is mob justice. They, instead of putting someone on trial, someone's that they just don't like, they decide to hang them or something. It would be sort of like the Salem witch trials, I think, after a while.
Yeah, that's rough. Hey, go ahead.
His Happy Days saying he wants to debate. He says, "I will debate an anarchist or Styx on abortion. A shameful disprey. He should be able to spell if he's going to come debate."
I think
that's a meme. Yeah, that's on purpose.
Oh,
yeah, that's like Asian.
I'm a boomer. I don't know freaking memes, dude.
Jay.
Yo, Happy Days. Send me your Twitter, by the way.
I won't be able to debate because I'm actually going to hop off.
Yeah, no worries, dude. That's fine. Yeah, man. I'll
stand up for Styx. I'll do the Styx with it.
But by the way, can I read one out here from Big A Sucks?
Sure.
When Styx is elected God Emperor of Vermont, he better level the hole that is White River Junction. I absolutely agree. It is the armpit of Lebanon, which is over in New Hampshire. It's terrible.
Hey, Styx, if you were God Emperor, what would the spice be? Are you a Dune fan?
What?
Are you a Dune fan?
Dune the movie?
Or the novel? Yeah, the God Emperor idea. And they have the spice, which is kind of the drug of that universe.
I saw it years ago, but I don't remember much about it because I was a little kid. I've got to get around.
What would the drug be of the Styx God Emperor world?
Oh, it's a close tie between caffeine and alcohol.
I can go with that.
Yeah, maybe crack. Crack is okay, maybe.
Yeah, some heroin, whatever.
Yeah, just take a needle once in a while. That's okay.
Yeah.
Make non-addictive heroin, and then that'll be the drug.
Is there anything you want to promote before you head out? But by the way, like everyone, his links are down there, so you can check that out. But anything you have planned for the future, Styx?
Yeah, pretty soon on the BitChute and Steemit channels, there will be an exclusive return to the Entheogens series. It's not going to be on YouTube because YouTube will just ban me if I put it on here.
Awesome.
They don't want entheogenic education. They don't want people to have harm reduction. What can I say?
All right, perfect, dude. Well, thanks for hopping on, man. It's been nice to chat with you.
Yeah, it was fun. Have a good night, y'all.
Yeah, man.
Thank
Peace out, Styx.